Okay, so why don't we go ahead and get started? I think the crowd's small enough. I'm not going to use a microphone. I think I can talk loud enough. Probably too loud for some people. So thank you all for coming on this lovely day. We'll try to keep this meeting relatively brief. What we'll do is, the agenda for today is I'm going to give a short presentation, maybe 15, 20 minutes, to try to catch everybody up on why we're here today and kind of what's been going on to get us to this point. We'll talk about kind of what's happened since we had this last big public meeting in this room back in November and how the design proposal has progressed. And then there will be a time at the end for people to comment on where the design is now. And so after the presentation, we'll explain, but it'll be kind of open-ended at the end, so so you can stay as long as you want, or hopefully you'll stay around for a while, but you don't have to stick around. I think the meeting was advertised till 6, and it's not probably going to go that long, so sorry about that. So I'm Bill Fruehling. I'm with the City of Madison Planning Department. With me is Ryan Jonley, also from the Planning Department. I wanted to make a few introductions. So the Downtown Coordinating Committee is the city's committee that has primary responsibility for making decisions and advising the county council on issues downtown, especially focused around State Street and the Capitol Square and kind of that real core area of downtown. And the DCC is the one that has been really working, trying to work through this issue. So I know there are a number of DCC members here today. I don't know if you just want to raise your hands. I won't call you all out. But thank you for coming. I think it's important to note that they're coming to these meetings, and so they're hearing firsthand what some of the comments are themselves. So I think that's really helpful as they move forward, because not everybody always hears exactly some of the same things. And I also wanted to note and welcome Ken Psyche and Jill Sebastian. Ken Psyche was the landscape architect who was a primary designer of this space, and Jill is a public artist from Milwaukee who was the artist and for the Philosopher's Grove. And I just really want to thank them for being flexible and trying to make this a space that works for everybody. So so thanks for that. So the Philosopher's Grove is probably, if you're here, you probably already know, is the area right at the top of State Street. So on your right here is the Capitol, the area with the big circles on top of State Street that we're talking about. But we're really focusing on kind of that bottom portion, the part right between the Wisconsin History Museum and Teddy Wedgers, two important landmarks there. This is a little more simplified view of the existing condition. And just to kind of point out, for those of you that aren't familiar with it, there are a number of elements that exist in the space. You can probably pick out the trees that are there. I'll show you another image in a minute. But these are all existing trees. There are pedestrian lights here. The black dots are what are called the Philosopher's Stones. So they're the granite and bronze shapes that are there. There's also 3 bike racks, existing bike racks that go across there now. So that's kind of a simple diagram of the space and how it exists today. As I mentioned before, Philosopher's Grove is a work of public art, and I think it's important to recognize that. And so these weren't just random items that were placed in this area. This is a composition, and it had it was purposely designed, and it had an intent to be something different and to provide a place kind of out of the way just off State Street where people could, they could sit and eat or read or just hang out, and a place that anybody could stop and spend time. So that was done in 2004. So this space was constructed in its current form about 10 or 11 years ago. So why are we here today? A couple of years ago, there started to be a lot of attention to this area and a lot of concern being expressed, a lot of it captured in newspapers, with regard to some of the activity that people felt were going on there that made the space not totally welcoming for everybody. And just to kind of summarize some of those early things that we heard, I think there were issues that we heard that were design related, especially at night. The space was dark and not very well lit. The space kind of, I think people felt lacked connectivity because with all the things that are kind of occupying the middle of the space, it's, passing through that space, it's not very permeable if you're a pedestrian. So you have to, pretty much go to one side or the other to, if you're walking, towards State Street, if you're walking the other way towards the parking ramp or the library or over to. And then I think just, this space was intended to be a space that was welcoming for everybody. And I think some people felt that the way that the space was being used wasn't very accommodating for everybody. A lot of because of what we call quality of life issues. I think there was some people felt intimidated and just didn't feel very welcome. And so we tried a number of things last summer, just some kind of quick, easy, cheap things to see if we could just kind of change the dynamic of the space a little bit. We experiment with these easy things first and just see what happens. So you might recall there were some chalkboards out there for people to write on. We had those in the 700 and 800 blocks of State Street as we were doing the design for that space. And they were very well used, very creative ideas, some very creative things that had nothing to do with our project, but they were kind of a fun thing in the space that a lot of people, and not just part-time, college students, writing things. There were a lot of, there were some very interesting things, and it kind of added a bit of excitement. So we tried that here, didn't work as well. We wrapped some of the trees with the like the Christmas lights, the twinkle lights. That changed a little bit the ambiance. It didn't really illuminate the space much, but it felt a little more inviting at night, I think. There was some increased police presence. We had an easier permitting process to use the space. We tried to do some increased programming or having some activity in the space. So we tried a lot of different kind of experimental things last year, and some better received than others, but didn't really help us get to our goal and why we're all here. And we're trying to have this be a great place for everyone, not only a great civic space, but just a great destination. It doesn't have to be big and grand in scale, but just a high quality space that everybody is welcome in. So this is the part everybody probably really looking forward to, going through the process, but I thought it was important to just review how we got to where we were. So we had this public workshop in November of last year, very well attended, 80 people were at that meeting. And we talked at that meeting about how the design has evolved over the years of that space, kind of reminding people of what it was before its current design and all the issues and concerns and problems there were at that time. We talked about getting people's concerns about that space right now. So that was a design workshop. So we're really trying to get people's ideas for two things. One, what are some physical changes that could be made to the space? We heard a couple themes out of that. One is it should be opened up a little bit more visually. We heard comments that if you're outside of the space, either on State Street or by the Mifflin cul-de-sac, it looks like there are a lot of objects in the space. And so we heard that, you know, without removing all the stones, maybe it could be opened up visually a little more. We also heard, as I mentioned on that last slide, about kind of the lack of connectivity, the need to open up the space more as a pass-through space so pedestrians can get through there more. We also, another part of that workshop, talked about ideas for activating the space. Then we took all that input that we got and we went back to the DCC and we said, okay, there's kind of 5 approaches that we could do here, ranging from not changing the space physically at all, but just really trying to load it up with programming, to redesigning the portion that's closest to State Street. There's the area by the cul-de-sac bulb is a very regular grid of trees and very formal and symmetrical, but as you get towards State Street, there's almost a different part of it that had some existing trees that we saved when we redesigned the space. That you know, we heard some comments that seemed to feel a little separate from the rest of the space. So we talked about maybe redesigning that. We talked about having a pass-through that was skewed more towards the Veterans Museum. And so what that did was left the bigger grove intact. We talked about an alternative that would open up a pass-through really in the middle of the space that kind of split the space in 2 or made 2 smaller spaces on either side of that. And then we talked about totally reconstructing the space. So the DCC really expressed a preference more towards approaches 3 and 4. I think they thought, you know, we really need to try to do something here, but felt that there's also a fair likelihood, I would say, that the block where on the side where the History Museum is could redevelop within the next few years. And, you know, and that whole block from Fairchild up to State Street might become something totally different at that point. And so they wanted us to explore options 3 and 4. So we did. We went back to them at their last meeting in February with a couple different iterations of those 2 concepts. We talked with them about some pros and cons and relative costs. And the DCC preferred a concept that put a path more through the middle of the space. So that's what we're going to talk about tonight. That's how we got to where we are. So in a second we'll talk about that. But before we do, I just want to make sure that before anybody leaves here, you know what's next. So next will be for the Downtown Coordinating Committee to take the input that they hear tonight and any other information that they get to finalize their concept and a preferred alternative. Then the plans need to be finalized, construction drawings need to be done, has to go through the city approval process before construction can begin. One important piece of this that I don't want to lose sight of is the activating the space piece of it. It's something that we talked a fair amount about last time, but until we really knew what the space was going to be, how it was going to be designed and how the pieces were going to be arranged, we didn't think we could go too far on that. So that's still a piece that needs to come. So as far as the emerging design preferences or preference, this is where it's heading, and this is the big poster on the back wall that we'll be looking at in a minute. But just to give you a little context, everybody should be well oriented by now, but State Street is the diagonal line going across the screen there. The big dark circle towards the bottom right, there's a round field of granite pavers, and that's what the dark area is. And so, and then you can see the Mifflin cul-de-sac coming up there. So if we zoom in a little bit more, this is really what we're looking at. So all the trees that are shown on here are existing. So the DCC preferred alternative would be to don't take this blue line literally. This is just to show the area that we're looking at creating more of a path through. So it would go right through this middle grove of trees. And what we would be talking about basically is removing the philosopher stones from that area. So it's removing 11 or 12 stones from that area. So all the stones that are in red here, we'll show you some better images of this in a minute. All the stones that are in red would be removed. All the ones that brown would say there are bike racks at the end. At least one of those would have to be moved. And we'll talk about how that might happen in a minute too. So that's kind of the direction that we're going. We're really looking at keeping it pretty status quo, except for the 12 feet, the 12-foot wide space between the center rows of trees. And all those trees are in tree grades. So if you took off the width of the grades, really what you're talking about is more of an 8-foot wide clear space through there. So it's not an overly drastic change, but one that hopefully will accomplish where we're trying to get. So if you looked at this, we did a couple quick SketchUps to try to illustrate this a little bit. So this is roughly what's existing. A lot of these stones have shapes and angles to them that we weren't able to really replicate here, but their size and location are pretty close. So this is kind of what it would look like now if you're at State Street looking down that. So again, the blue line on here is to illustrate kind of the path that we're looking for. You're not going to see anything on the ground that's going to resemble that. We're not going to roll out a blue carpet there or anything, but the stones shown in red are the ones that would be proposed to be taken out, maybe just put in storage or something for now until we understand how this whole block might change if it does in a few years. So, and this gives you a little bit more of a sense of how that would look after those were gone. You can see there's still a fair number of stones. I think there are 44 stones there now, and this scenario would remove about 11 of them. But you can get a sense for how that would kind of open up that space through the middle. And if you add, when people start getting in there, there's some planters that we could bring towards the front right now. They're kind of stuck back at the end of the cul-de-sac just to help demarcate that space a little bit more. One of the things that has been talked about, people feel strongly that this should not happen. Some people think that it should happen, but for now, what's on the table, we're considering it, is maybe this space could allow bicycles to go through there. Right now, that kind of happens. People ride their bikes on sidewalks there, up next to the buildings. And one thought is maybe, well, if there's a space through the middle, that maybe bikes might migrate to that space more. Maybe you do something simple like just curb cuts on either end to further help kind of identify that, but not really mark it as a bike lane. One of the concerns is that bikes will go zipping through there, and it's such a heavy pedestrian intersection that there will be a lot of bike-ped conflicts. But some of the discussion has been that's just another way to activate the space and to get people to going through the space. The only way to activate the space isn't necessarily to have concerts at lunch, or it's you want people in the space and moving through the space, and so that's one option that's being talked about. Here's a photograph of that where we try to illustrate again. So this is off to the side a little bit, but the red stones would be the ones that would be proposed to be removed. Just another angle, this looking at it from a little higher vantage point so you get a better sense of what we're talking about, kind of hovering above the Midland Street cul-de-sac there. So again, this is what's existing. Those are, again, the pathway that we're showing going through there, and the stones that we need to be removed to accommodate that are shown in red. And that's what it would look like without. One of the things that we talked about doing is leaving a few of the stones that kind of encroach into that space. You can see here that are a couple of them, so it's not really a totally wide path through there, but something that there might be some just visual cues that if we do have bikes in particular going through there, that it could, they would slow down a little bit. Again, we could have some planters at the end of the cul-de-sac to kind of demarcate that pass-through space a little better, and if we had bikes or not. So this is another photograph of what it looks like today, or actually last week. And then if you can see the red stones there, the ones that would be removed. One of the ideas that we have been kicking around too is the thought of maybe having a bike corral. I mentioned there's the 3 bike racks at the end of the cul-de-sac. One would have to be removed for sure. These could go probably anywhere, but because these racks are pretty well used, particularly on farmers market Saturdays, we're looking at trying to keep the bike racks close to State Street. So one of the things that we have talked about was maybe taking one of the surface parallel parking spaces on Mifflin and having it be a bike corral. This is a picture of one on the right that they've done the last couple summers on King Street, kind of by the Sassy Cow?
Tipsy Cow.
Tipsy, I always say Sassy Cow. That's the creamery, thanks. By the Tipsy Cow. And so during warm weather months, it's available for bicycle parking, but when it's cold and there's not as much demand, that can be taken out and it can be a surface parking space again for cars. So that's one of the things that we're interested in getting some feedback on as well. And so what we wanted to do today is just to get your thoughts on what I went over and what we saw. The plan, I don't know how well you could really see it with the light, but it's really big on the back wall there. As long as the tape holds, it will be up there. And we want to keep this simple. We don't want to get this too complicated. We just want to know basically what you like about this proposal, if anything, hopefully something, or what you think is problematic about it, what you would like to see change, or if you just have some comments of things to make sure that we think about and the DCC thinks about as they move forward, or more just kind of neutral comments, we can have those too. So on your table, we're recycling some cards here from so don't read what's on the back of them. Just pretend like they are blank cards. So again, we're trying to keep it really simple. Things that you like about that, you can write on the cards, and we'll tape them up there. Some of the things I know might be specific to a particular area on that map. Some of them might just be general comments. What we want to end up with at the end of the day are these cards that are taped up all over that to let us really know what you think about it. So to keep it simple, and we'll leave this up here so you don't forget it, the green cards will be for things that you like or positive aspects of that. The gold cards are things that you think need work or should be changed, and the blue cards are just if you have any additional comments or questions that we need to address. The second part of it, and you can do it all at once, I mentioned before the kind of the part about the activating the space and needing to work on that later. We're actually still working on it right now. We got a lot of good ideas at our meeting that we had back in November, and those are on the wall over there. But those were just some ideas. Some people I know have been thinking about this, and I've heard some ideas that have come up since that time we just want to keep that discussion going as well. So I don't care what color card you use for that. If you just want to write any additional programming or activation ideas that after this, that the space could see some activity going on, just write those ideas and post them up there. So I'll be here, Ryan will be here, and Ken and Jill will be here to answer questions. And again, we want to keep this kind of on your time since it's such a nice day, so you can hang around for as little or as long as you would like. But hopefully, we have these meetings and you all came here to let us know what you think. So please take some time and share your thoughts, and thank you very much for coming today.
Brett, I need to remain
respectful to this process. That's why I'm going to remove myself. You have done nothing different. You haven't listened to us, what we want. You've just rearranged the furniture. The reason I was late was because I couldn't get out of my office door because they were arresting 2 people right outside my door. I'm tired of it, and all you can talk about are trees and billboards. I'm done. I'm not done. But I don't mean to be disrespectful, but you don't listen to us, whether we see you at DCC, the BID, DMI, the mayor. We don't want bikes. We don't want trees. We don't want stones. You don't listen. You don't hear. It's like, you know, you're just, you know, 3 planets above us. You don't hear. You say thank you very much, and then you come back and tell us what you're going to do. I appreciate this opportunity, but look how many people are here. You should have just had a staff meeting for all, you know, the people who really care about this. No, but people don't come because they're trying to make a living and they know they're not heard. Thank you for letting me be heard. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. So, with that, we really do want to hear your comments, and that's why we have these meetings. And good, bad, or indifferent, you know, please share your thoughts there. So, thanks again for coming.
Just as the artist, first of all, is to thank Bill that I've been part of the discussions. This hasn't gone forward without consulting with me and giving it the respect that this is a work of art, so I want to assure you of that. I do have some aesthetic opinions, as this is a work of art, and I'm the artist, that I'd like to share, which is, first off, you know, the things that the woman that just left, I can design spaces, but I can't answer that. The rest of you can. But what I can refer to is if what you want to do is get less of a sense of congestion, that completely removing those bicycle racks that you had somebody do a beautiful job on the drawings. There was only one photograph that showed that those 3 bicycle racks are a wall at the end of the space. They also aesthetically have always pulled down the sensation of the space. That also said, in the images when the planters went back up, then you put up walls again. And so my point is, when we originally designed the space, we had pictured it as the trees and the stones in a relationship. And so the cleaner that can be, the more I feel it reads as a work of art and not just, you know, a space that a lot of things have been dumped in. Thank you.
I just have a comment, and I don't mean to be disrespectful to the artist or anybody, but how do you feel about people defecating next to the art, selling drugs next to the art? All of this stuff that you designed to be a beautiful space is just being trashed. How do you feel about that? How does anybody here feel about that? About having to walk through, be swore at, you have stuff thrown at you. What is the matter with you people? Who's ever designing this? Can't you stand up and fight these people and get these drug dealers out of here? We're not talking about moving the homeless people or moving one iota of art. We're talking about getting rid of the drug dealers. So can this whole thing you got going, with all due respect, and let the police do their jobs and get these drug people out of here, and then we'll have this conversation again. And we may not have to do anything with this space. What do you think?
One of the things that's been talked about is whether anything has to be done physically to change it, but I think it's probably a kind of a multi-pronged approach at this point. It's a little bit of activating the space, it's some enforcement, it's some design changes. I think, one of the things that some members of the DCC made very good observation last time. And just the act of doing something to try to change the space, to show that people care about this space and they're trying to do things to improve it. I think those kinds of things will make a difference. I hope they will. So, any of those kind of comments that aren't directly related to I heard what you said. You're not the first time we've heard that. But any of those kind of comments that aren't really related to the programming or activating the space or the design itself, put those on the blue cards. Those are the kinds of things that we know it's not all about programming and it's not all about how the space is designed. There's other things at play that impact how the space is used and how it's perceived. So all of those are important. So that's exactly the kind of thing that why we have the blue cards. So, again, has anybody else had any other comments? Let's, one more.
So is there any, I didn't see any plans for any new lighting in that area? Is that part of the plan at all?
It could be.
It's not current.
Right now, it's not. Like I said, we have the pedestrian lights that are there. Last year we did wraps of the trees that, again, that seemed to have a little bit of more of an ambiance at night that maybe led a little bit to people feeling a little safer, but it didn't light up the space. It didn't really add to the illumination as much as maybe the feel of the space. Again, another thing you can write down. Sandy.
I have a question, because we were just recently told in another meeting that a lot of the trees on State Street have died and are going to be coming down. Are all those trees there healthy, or are they all going to be staying?
As far as I know, they're healthy.
Because the one we were told, quite a lot of trees on State Street are not going to make it.
Yeah, who told you that?
Well, I don't recall any in Phosphorus Grove that are dead.
Okay.
You agree? Yeah. Like I said at that GSSBA meeting, Sandy, that you're referencing, the majority of the trees that are coming down in the next couple months are concentrated in the Mid-State Street area, 300 and 400 blocks. For whatever reason, that's where any of the dead trees are.
A lot of the trees in the 300 and 400 blocks are ash, I think, so that might be part of it.
Okay. Any other comments before we get to writing our comments and posting them up? Or,
I read that, but my observation is that the information booth is a shame and ought to be redone to the highest quality materials and design. That booth alone says that this is a junkie space.
okay. Any other comments? Good of the order before we get to the comments? Okay.
Bill, I
Yes,
guess I'll
well.
just comment. I do think there's a difference between the intended use and the actual use. And from a design standpoint, to the extent that you can help impact that, I think is important. I think the center, center lane or whatever you're calling it, could have potential to increase legitimate pedestrian and bike traffic through there, but I don't think it goes far enough. It still looks too much like it does right now. I think the additional lighting is also key. I have some concerns about the bike corral. We currently have problems now with them using the trees to secure their bikes and all of their stuff. And so I'm concerned about that space being overwhelmed by the current population as a storage area, for example. And so, maybe, a V-bike rack or something that increases legitimate foot traffic through there might be, something to consider. But I do have concerns about the bike corral itself, just because, again, intended use versus actual use.
Bill, can you provide any more information in terms of the situation on a new historical building and the replacement of the two buildings at the southeast end of Mifflin Street?
Well, I know that that Hovde owns much of that block base, but not all of it, and they have been looking at, trying to put together a project there that would redevelop, that side of the block. And, they're working on it. So no more specifics from, last time we talked about that.
No additional information from the state budget on the expansion of the historical.
Yeah, not that I'm aware of. Yeah, Dan?
Bill, about 2/3 of that space, when the canopy is out, cannot be observed at night from the cameras that are there by the police department. If there were no trees, that might solve part of the situation, that the police could see with their cameras when something is about to happen or is happening. Therein lies a lot of the problem. Right now, what was going on there, half an hour ago, there were more policemen there than what's at the station practically. There were 12 cops and 6 or 8 squad cars. And that really looks great for anybody that's coming into town looking for have a convention somewhere. They come to the main street of Madison, and what do they see? Drug dealing, prostitution, you name it, it's there. That stuff has to be eliminated.
Okay, don't see any more hands. So again, I know a couple of people came in here after we were done, but what our goal is here is to simply provide comments on the cards that are on the tables. On the green card, write things you like about the proposal, if there is anything. On the gold cards, things you think need work, or some additional study or things that you're not sure about. And blue are just kind of for questions or neutral comments that are things that you want to make sure are on our radar screen as we move forward with this. And also, don't forget about the further ideas for activating the space, and we need to keep that discussion rolling along as well. So again, thank you very much for coming. We'll be here for another 45 minutes at least, and able to answer questions and happy to talk to you one-on-one about anything. So thank you very much.